So Denis, just back from a 7-year stint in Asia, back in Europe, so you're especially well placed to comment on tanker market developments in the Far East and what you're seeing in Europe.
Yes, that's very interesting. Having done 7 years in Singapore has been quite an experience for me. I think the market is global, so the market is not improved in Singapore or in the West. But I think the relationship with your customer is crucial. And in Asia, I noticed particularly that the interface with your customer, your face-to-face meeting, your ability to travel, sit and talk is much greater than that maybe placed on in Europe and in the West. Having said that, historically, when I first came into the business, meetings and exchanging ideas were crucial with our clients and customers, but with the speed of technology and people's time schedule so tight, you find yourself conference calling or just simply phone calling. Asia, there's no place like a face-to-face meeting. That's the one big difference at the moment I see.
Another interface you talked about in a sort of tongue-in-cheek but slightly provocative presentation was sort of the owner-charterer-broker nexus.
Yes, I did provoke that comment. I think the emphasis that owners put on their ship's operation and the safety areas of the ship and the whole operating of ships, it is crucial. Owners, to them, a ship owner sees their ship as being their market, their branding. Their ship actually is what the owner's about, and it's really important to them. A charterer, conversely, will look at an owner and expect him to have everything in place. He doesn't need to be reassured. His technical divisions or his vetting departments have told him that ship is suitable for charter, and that's what he will do. But an owner wants to keep explaining to the charterer how good his ship is, possibly seeking an extra dollar or cent on the freight, or maybe just ensuring there's a continuity of service with that charterer. The service provider who's in the middle, which is in our case the shipbroking division, it ends up transposing that conversation between the charterer and the owner, and sometimes there's a frustration when you realize that actually both parties are keen to get the best out of any particular deal, but they view the priorities very differently, and therefore I was provoking that. I must say that port state, terminals, and all other areas that relate to charterers and charterers' cargoes are very high on the charterers' list. And of course, the ship owners do know that.
You mentioned ports, and one of the points you made is that in a way for a ship owner to become more efficient, ports have to continue to be inefficient.
It's not quite the way. A ship owner can be more profitable from the inefficiencies of ports or seaways or congestions. I mean, a very good example here in Europe is the Black Sea. During the winter months, the Black Sea, the Dardanelles, or the straits through Istanbul become fog-bound. It's safe navigation, daylight navigation only, and so there is a congestion of ships passing one way and the other way, and then that congestion has to be paid for, and it's paid for by demurrage, and demurrage naturally is an earning for an owner, and the more the congestion, the more the owner might earn out of it, and he plans that. He looks at it like that, and similarly, the charterer that has a cargo inside the Black Sea to take it outside of the Black Sea knows that he has to build in that congestion. But there are other places with congestion, particularly China, when seasonally they take imports of crude oil, particularly around the Q4, the winter months, and they start to stock a little bit. Those ships don't discharge in a line, perfect line. Some of those ships can wait 3 days to 5 days or even 10 days. That's not a lot of congestion as congestion goes. But when a ship is waiting 3 or 5 or 10, no charterer can fix that ship because they don't know when it's going to sail. Whatever the owner says, he doesn't know either. Only the port knows, and even that's information that comes at the end. So that congestion does actually put a squeeze on the market.
I challenged you to hypothetically build a new build fleet for success and also a second-hand fleet for success.
Well, I'll maintain my view. A new build fleet, of course, has to deliver at least 2 years or 3 years out, depending on your terms and what you discuss with the shipyard. So I'm going to look 2 to 3 years out. I'm looking at VLCCs 3 years out. I'm looking at LNG carriers 3 years out. And I'm looking at Potentially the Suezmaxes, although they are built quite well at the moment, but the Suezmax is a very, very good feeder size for the large crudes. As far as secondhand goes, maybe I amuse myself by saying bunker vessels. I suspect there will be a lot of low sulfur bunkers needed by ships all over the place, and there aren't that many bunker vessels around, although in Singapore and in Gibraltar, of course, that's where the bottlenecks are. But there are many other places, and I think there'll be a tremendous usage of a bunker vessel. Small outlay, nice permanent employment. My other second-hand take was the MRs. Again, I like the idea of distribution, short sea distribution, maybe across the North Sea or across Southeast Asia. And I think, again, permanent employment for an MR is quite possible. And finally, I looked at the LR2 market as a potential second-hand. And I say second-hand carefully. I'm not talking about a brand new one-year-old second-hand. I'm talking one 5 years old plus. Maybe they're relatively cheap for what's actually going to be required.
Who, to your mind, will be the winners and losers in the tank industry in 2018?
The winners and losers in 2018, it's a very difficult one to think that one through. The winners certainly will be those that have the size of fleet that can deliver to various charterers their requirement. I think a charterer wants reliability and dependency. Despite what the market is, they do like to have a relationship with owners, not just one, several. I think the large fleet owners will be the main winners of 2018, or the least losers. As far as the losers of 2018, again, it's difficult to pick on an owner's strategy. I think those that are not in a position to renew their fleet but want to stay in the business, I think they will find themselves behind the pack in 2 years' time. It doesn't mean that they don't want to renew their fleet. I think it might be that finances aren't that easily available. It might be that they're stretched and have been over the last year or so due to the low earnings. They're probably running a very good and safe fleet, and they're just going to just internally shore up themselves. I feel that they may not be in a position to make the most of a changing market in 2020.